It doesn't seem to matter. They'd rather just vilify her now. Of course, they're not going to come out and say I support her. Why would they do that? They want a Democrat, but I think that might be a mistake. Let's go take a break. Madeline and Alfonso will join us next, right here on WFEA's The Morning Update.
WFEA Manchester and WMLL HD2 Bedford, a Manchester Media Group station. Your local solution to get your business wanted, found, and chosen more often.
From ABC News, I'm Sherry Preston. The man who gave the country near daily briefings during the pandemic, saying before a Senate committee minutes ago,
under the advice of my attorneys, I will invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution to refrain from answering your questions.
Dr. Anthony Fauci accused by Senator Rand Paul, chair of this committee, of mishandling the pandemic.
Regarding the lockdowns, you argue that you did not personally issue every lockdown order, close every school, or impose every mandate. But officials across the country invoked your authority to justify these decisions. And you presented your recommendations not as judgments open to debate, but as dictates of science itself.
Democratic Senator Gary Peters says Rand Paul has a bias against Fauci and has had one for years. Fauci has received a full pardon from prosecution from former President Joe Biden. A new court filing in the court case against former FBI Director James Comey shows the lengths to which investigators have gone to try to prove a picture of seashells forming the numbers 8647 constitute a true threat against President Trump. Here's ABC national correspondent Stephen Portnoy.
James Comey's attorneys point to internal documents showing how the FBI has fruitlessly dug into court transcripts, old news articles, and AI chatbots to try to find examples of people using the phrase 86 to signify an intent to kill. Comey's lawyers say the FBI even interviewed convicted mobster Sammy the Bull Gravano to see if he ever used the phrase. The court papers say Gravano, whom Comey prosecuted, claimed a gangster would never use that term, because law enforcement would know what it meant.
Comey wants the case tossed. That fragile pause in fighting in the Middle East broken. Jordan says it shot down 5 missiles launched from Iran as the U.S. partners with Saudi Arabia to strike missiles from Iran that were launched into neighboring Iraq. You're listening to ABC News.
Drip Drop is a doctor-developed, proven fast hydration that helps your body and mind work better. Trusted by firefighters, medical professionals, and over 90% of top college and pro sports teams, Drip Drop is engineered to hydrate faster and more effectively than water alone, with 3 times the electrolytes of leading sports drinks. Stock up now at dripdrop.com and use promo code RADIO20 for 20% off your first order. That's dripdrop.com, promo code RADIO20 for 20% off your first order. Head to dripdrop.com now and use promo code RADIO20.
These days, heading back to school means more than pencils and notebooks. It means laptops, tablets, online accounts, and a lot of personal information moving across the internet. WebRoot Total Protection gives families powerful online defense tools with antivirus, VPN, cloud backup, identity protection, and more, helping keep your digital life secure throughout the school year and beyond. Go to webroot.com/radio and get 60% off today. That's webroot.com/radio for 60% off. Live a better digital life with WebRoot, because peace of mind shouldn't be optional.
From the WFEA News Desk, here's what's happening locally.
A former nursing assistant at Elliott Hospital accused of sexually assaulting children is facing new charges. The members of Goffstown Select Board have voiced their concerns over a new county jail being built in their town. Some local residents at an apartment complex were flooded Tuesday afternoon. Good morning, I'm Tom Novak. Authorities say a former nursing assistant at Elliott Hospital charged with sexually assaulting children is facing a number of new charges out of Stratford and Rockingham counties. According to court documents, Alexander Colbath was recently indicted by grand juries in both counties for alleged crimes that took place between late 2022 and 2026 that occurred in Salem, Nottingham, and Rochester and involved multiple victims, one of which was 2 years old at the time of the alleged assault. Colbath has remained in state custody at the Merrimack County Jail since being arrested and charged last year with assaulting an 8-year-old receiving treatment at Elliott Hospital after surgery and on unrelated charges following an investigation into his time as a babysitter in Concord. Goffstown Select Board has raised concerns with county officials over the possibility of building a new jail on county-owned land in their town. Monday night, the Select Board agreed to send a letter to the county's Corrections Department over concerns of a new jail suggested for a piece of land along Route 114 that could cost anywhere between $255 and $285 million. Town officials have questions on the potential impacts the facility could have on local resources and the impact it could have on the greater community. However, not everyone is as open to the idea, as Select Board member Mark LeMay went on the record and said, "Leave it in Manchester. We don't want any more headaches." Officials say Tuesday afternoon's heavy rains led to flooding in some parts of the Queen City, as the Colonial Village apartments on West River Drive were one of the spots that saw heavy flooding. But tow truck companies were able to move in and out of the complex throughout the afternoon and help people stranded by the flooding. Officials say the road has since dried up and folks can now access their cars safely. In sports, the Red Sox fell to the Athletics 4-3 last night. Sox and A's play Game 3 of the 4-game series tonight at 9:40. I'm Tom Novak for WFEA News.
Now, your Granite State forecast.
For today, morning rain becomes steady during the afternoon with highs reaching the lower 70s. Tonight, the rain continues, which could be heavy at times with lows in the lower 60s. For Thursday, morning showers decrease over the course of the day, and we see highs in the upper 60s. Looking at Friday, mix of sun and clouds with a slight chance of rain with highs in the mid to upper 70s. That's a look at your Granite State forecast on 99.9 and AM 1370 WFEA.
Portions of this program may have been previously recorded.
You're listening to the Morning Update with Jeff Chidester, 99.9 FM and AM 1370 WFEA.
Welcome back to your morning. Jeff Chidester with you. Don't forget, check us out, 1370WFEA.com, 1370WFEA.com. Over there at the very top, you'll see the Listen Live button. That way, if you move away from a traditional radio, whether it's in your kitchen, your bathroom, or your car, you can listen to us on your smart device. We'll make that smart device that much smarter. And, of course, Madeline Alfonso is going to help us make it even that much more smarter with this next topic. Marriage rates. Why is it important that we look at the institution of marriage, and what are some of the things we should be concerned about? Madeline was part of a team over at Advancing American Freedom that really looked at this issue and really how we want to approach it, especially when we start talking about policy and ways that we can support it. Madeline, how are you this morning?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
Outstanding. Thank you so much for asking as well. I enjoyed this report quite a bit because I think a lot of times we forget to look at this issue, and especially the way you guys framed it. I've always framed it the same way. Marriage and relationships and children are the cornerstone of a community, of a society. When you look at this, the first thing right out of the gate, why should this matter for people when they hear this topic?
So, the institution of marriage is a foundation of American life. It creates families, it builds our communities, it helps Americans find meaning and fulfillment. And, children are so much likely to succeed when growing up with a family with two parents. And we just see society as a whole, American society just flourish when people are getting married and having kids.
And when we think about that, there has been conversations about not only the marriage rate, but also the birth rate in this country and other Western society as well. And now people are starting to sound off the alarms on that. Talk a little bit about the U.S. marriage rate and what you guys found out.
Definitely. So, marriage rates are associated with economic stability, upward mobility, family stability reduces financial stress, reliable resources for children. There's so many reasons why people should get married and stay together and have kids, but we're seeing that there's been a really long-term national decline in marriages and marriage rates. So, for example, from post-World War II, every 1,000 people, there were 16.4 marriages in 1946, and then now we're seeing 6.2 per 1,000 people in 2022. So, that's a huge come down.
It is a huge come down, too, and I'm going to post this information in the report up online, guys, so you can see it. When you look at the graph, it is quite startling, and it really is a wake-up call for a lot of us to kind of think about how we want to approach this topic. You guys talked a little bit about the changing values and some of the priorities, and I think it's interesting, too, because it can't be just us looking at the most recent younger generation. We have to be looking at, several decades of this data, because we see a sharp decline coming into this new century and continuing, and maybe a little bit of an uptick. What are some of those changing values and priorities, Madeline?
I think a big is just a big change is the changing values and priorities. Religiosity is associated with like earlier marriages or getting married younger and having more people get married. And that's definitely declining. If women are in a religious household, they're like far more likely to get married and get married younger. I think there's something around like 43% of religious women are married by 35. And if you're not religious, it's like 28% chance you're married by 35. So, I think that is a huge indicator of that's just something that's less common in our society these days. And as a result, we're seeing marriage rates really fall.
I know that you guys looked at, really the key data and some of the facts. But if you look at the periphery, are there things that we're not doing well as a policy-wise, or even us in personal relationships that might have younger people around us? Are there things that we're not doing well to help at least convey the strength and the reason for marriage?
I think people on broadcast, on social media, and just different platforms, kind of some of the negative aspects of marriage. And I think we should be highlighting all of the benefits of marriage. Not only, just like economically, stability-wise, all of those, outward things that are better from marriage, but just like the internal peace and comfort and joy you find from love and marrying one person and staying with them and having a family, how fulfilling it is. I think, a lot of people are falling into cohabitation, which makes you far less likely to get married. Promote the goodness of marriage.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point. And we are seeing more people, even of a younger generation, start talking more positively about what they're finding in their own personal relationships. And of course, some of the most recent studies show, especially married couples are much happier, they're living longer. And so there are those statistical things that we can kind of look at as well. Madeline Alfonso, of course, joins us, Advancing American Freedom. It does vary by state too, doesn't it? And you know what I did too, Madeline, when you said this to me, I immediately looked at New Hampshire, where we were in New Hampshire. And, we're kind of in the middle-ish pack, but we're not doing really well in that regard too. Why does it matter to look at it by state, and why do some states do much better at this than other states?
Well, it's so interesting. For example, like Utah is a super religious state, and you see they have like the highest marriage rate, 54.7%. And then you see actually New Hampshire. New Hampshire's pretty middle. But then you see like DC is the lowest rate of 30.9% people. And I think it's a lot of just, probably focusing on career. I think people are probably less likely to be religious. There's so many different factors. So I think it's interesting looking at state, looking at the different culture and societal, just like health and I don't know what's happening in each state, so you can have a better understanding of these things lead to marriage and these things are clearly not leading to marriage.
Well, and, eventually what someone's going to ask us, Madeline, is how you guys came up with this data. So what were some of the ways that you found this information out? What were you looking for that you came to when you were putting this survey together?
Totally. So, we just looked at a lot of different studies. We looked at Pew Research. We looked at a different quarterly journal. We looked at this author talking about marriage and child well-being, the future of children. We just looked at different databases, and they're all listed on the Independence Index under sources. I highly encourage everyone to go look because you can see we use so many different sources to pull this data. But it's just interesting because there's so many factors that affect marriage, so it's important to pull a bunch of different data and a bunch of sources because they all contribute to our graphs and our information.
And once again, we're talking to Madeline Alfonso, of course, Advancing American Freedom, and looking at really marriage rates. In your conclusion or what we should be doing with this next, we have a lot of people who are running for political office, listen to this radio show. How should general society look at this data and what they should do with it? Or how should people who are potentially going to craft the next version of a policy or policies that would help support this cornerstone of our society, how should they be looking at this report? And what was the conclusion you were hoping people would get from reviewing this report?
I think from seeing marriage rates are declining, that's evident. What can we do about it? I think because marriage remains just closely associated with family stability, upward mobility, child well-being, I think its erosion and it's going away is a meaningful indicator of America and society. Our society is not the healthiest it can be. And so I think just working overall, what can we do to make society better, to make it easier for people to get married, for people to be motivated to have children, be motivated by family. And I think the Independence Index is so important because it evaluates a lot of Americans' cultural and societal health. And just based on like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What can we do as a culture to be achieving these things, and what are the statistics showing us? What do we need to change?
Yeah, I hope people do look at that as well. Madeline Alfonso, of course, Advancing American Freedom. This is part of the interview, Madeline, where we go free range. You get to say anything you want or conclude any way you want. Your final thoughts?
Amazing. I would just encourage everyone on here, check out our Independence Index. I think it's the health of America is so important, and get married. I think marriage helps us in so many ways, helps our economy, helps society, and it brings personal joy and fulfillment. So that's what I have to say.
Absolutely. And once again, if you help craft policies, think about that when you're actually putting it together. We'll make sure we post this up online. Madeline, thanks for joining us on a hump day, and we look forward to chatting with you again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Our pleasure. Once again, we'll post this up online, guys, and then later on when we post up the audio, we'll make sure we put a link out there as well. Well, let's go ahead and take a real quick break, and when we come back, we'll chat a little bit more about what's going on. Top stories right here on 1370 WFEA.
More stimulating talk. You're on 99.9 FM and AM 1370 WFEA. Howie Carr.
You know, the Democrat presidents, each one is worse than the last. Clinton, Obama, Biden. Then they wanted Kamala Harris. I mean, you shudder to think what's ahead. And as soon as they get somebody in, they would have just, repealed it. And then they probably would have said, well, we've got to make up for lost time. And they would have started flying in express flights from Port-au-Prince and the Congo and Afghanistan, bring in more terrorists.
The Howie Carr Show. Weekday afternoons starting at 2. 99.9 FM in AM 1370 WFEA.
This Thursday at 8 a.m. on SaveBigNH.com, treat yourself to a night out at Stark Brewing Company in Manchester. For just $25, you'll get $50 to spend on great food, craft beer, and house-made spirits. Explore a fresh new menu handcrafted by their new chef. Grab dinner with friends, plan a date night, and enjoy live music every Friday and Saturday night. It's one of Manchester's favorite local spots, and you can enjoy it for half the price. Get $50 to spend for just $25 this Thursday at 8 a.m. at SaveBigNH.com.